Rome is the issue. It's the Roman world. And it's not that they persecuted Jews, it's that they're persecuting Christians. And everybody basically thought that until the mid-20th century, until people started actually looking seriously into Domitian's reign. And there's actually no evidence that he persecuted Christians at all. Of course, there are lots of Christians today in America who argue that, they're the most persecuted group in America. And you look around and you think, really? St. Augustine, who's the most important theologian in the history of Christianity, wrote about the book of Revelation and argued vehemently that it was not a prediction of the future, right? That it's talking about stuff going on right now. In the Bible, in 2 Peter, it says that with the Lord, a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day, which means, if you take that, if you really push that, it means that if today you say, Jesus is coming back in 3 days, then you can start looking for him around 5022.
We are MythVision. Dr. Bart Ehrman is joining me again today. How are you, my friend?
Well, thanks.
Thank you for giving me another opportunity to have a small chat with you. Let me ask you this. You're doing these courses. We're about to have this debate on the resurrection. I've been plugging it like crazy. Done multiple episodes with you, just mentioning this. But you have other courses as well, which I put down in the description. People could sign up for. Really enjoyed all of them. Are you planning on going through the entire Bible at some point?
That's the plan. The first Bible course. The big series is dealing with the topic of how scholars study or how scholars read the Bible, and it's trying to explain scholarship in layperson's terms so that you understand what scholars are saying, but it's not going into all the jargon and all the details, just kind of laying it out. The first part of that was I did a course on Genesis that was 6 lectures. So I'm not going to be doing 6 lectures on every book of the Bible because that would be like over 150 lectures. I'm not doing that, but I am going to be covering the plan. I don't know if it's going to happen, but the plan is to cover the whole Bible. And I'm not going to go just chronological. I'm not going to go from beginning to end. I'm going to do different ones at different times. And so the ones I'm thinking about doing next are the earliest accounts of the life of Jesus. So to do the Gospels of Matthew and Mark, as Mark and Matthew in that order, and maybe have like 8 lectures on that or something. But so it's going to be mixing it up. But by the time I'm done, the idea is to have a whole set, of like lectures on dealing with in one way or another, pretty much the whole shooting match.
Thank you so much. Wanted to clarify for a good friend of mine who was asking. So the upcoming debate with you, Mike Licona, everyone can go sign up now. Early bird special. Get it before the price climbs. It will be live Q&A. With that amount of time, I highly expect you to be able to get most people's answers, at least to some of the questions that are out there, if they're good. You got to ask good questions or you're not going to fit the bill. You're not elect. You're not a chosen one if you don't. So Dr. Ehrman, you have an upcoming book on the book of Revelation. This book we call the Apocalypse. Christians interpret this as about our day today, Ukraine and Russia and all of the nonsense. I call it nonsense because I once believed like this for many years ago when I was an evangelical fundamentalist. And we want everything to be about us. I think it's been that way for 2,000 years. The church has made this about them in their day. Irenaeus thought it in his time, and then Athanasius took it and used it for this. And people were reinterpreting Revelation, whether they were spiritualizing it or they were taking it as, this is talking about us. My friends are persecuted, and they're the saints that are being beheaded, that are under the throne, etc. I would like to ask a few questions. Number one, the opening and close of this book. Write the things down which must soon take place. Or behold, I come quickly at the end of the book. The caps to this book are saying that here's the window which this should happen. When is this supposed to be taking place?
Well, for the author, it's taking place soon. And
right.
And the fact that it didn't happen as he described has made Christians over the years think, well, he didn't really mean soon. He must have meant soon for us. And people have ways of of explaining it, which is like, in the Bible, in 2 Peter, it says that with the Lord, a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day, which means, if you take that, if you really push that, it means that if today you say, Jesus is coming back in 3 days, then you can start looking for him around 5022. But I think John is writing his book to Christians in Asia Minor. He said he's writing to 7 churches in Asia Minor, and presumably he expected them to get something out of what he was saying. He's telling them it's going to be soon. He's not saying, it's going to happen in 2,000 years. He could have said that, but he's writing to people of his own day, and he's telling them, look, it's coming soon. The final chapter, you're right, says it 4 times. It happened soon.
I just wanted to get the timing right from the author's perspective. Now the next question is, do you agree with the consensus scholarly position that this book, or the writing of Revelation, was written around Domitian's reign? So it's a recollection saying, the beast is Neron Kaiser, 666. The Latin version has it as 616, which still calculates to the same for Neron Kaiser or Caesar. But this is after the Jewish War in 70. It's probably a PTSD of what happened in 70 in a way. Would you agree with that? Like the author's saying, look, what happened? God, you can't, they're conquering us. You need to take out Rome. Am I on the right path here?
A lot of people thought that. I don't see, I think it's definitely after 70. I think it is. I think you're right. It is during Domitian's reign, probably. I personally don't think that the fall of Jerusalem is the issue for this person. I'm not convinced this person was a Jew, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, because people always say that, but it's one of those things that people always say, and you kind of wonder what's the evidence exactly. People often say, for example, that he writes so badly in Greek, which he does,
right.
Because his native language is Aramaic or Hebrew, and I don't think there's any real evidence of that either. I think the guy just can write very well. I mean, most people can't. He writes better than most people in the world still today, but he's not a stylish. So I don't think that the fall of Jerusalem is the issue, but I agree with you. Rome is the issue. It's the Roman world. And it's not that they persecuted Jews, it's that they're persecuting Christians.
And this, historically, we can couple that with Domitian's reign. From what I understand, he was potentially doing something. It may have been embellished or legendized, even worse, of a martyrdom situation here. But is there something going on under Domitian's reign against Christians?
The traditional Christian answer to that is yes, and that answer goes back to the 2nd century, 3rd century. People like Tertullian said that Domitian was a persecutor of Christians, and everybody basically thought that till the mid-20th century, until people started actually looking seriously into Domitian's reign, and there's actually no evidence that he persecuted Christians at all. That doesn't mean that John doesn't feel like the church is being persecuted. John imagines that there are thousands and thousands of martyrs. Of course, there are lots of Christians today in America who argue that they're far more persecuted than Muslims, for example, or that they're the most persecuted group in America. And you look around and you think, really? So there have been scholars, for 30, 40 years who've argued that it's not because there's actually persecution going on. It's because when you've got a group like this, you feel persecuted, and they certainly were not favored by Romans, that's for sure. But there's nothing to indicate that the Roman Emperor Domitian had actually persecuted them.
I know there's a lot of reflections back to the Hebrew Bible throughout it. It does like a repeat, almost like they keep on saying the same thing, sometimes repetitive, like the 144,000 in Revelation 7. It gets repeated in Revelation 14. Almost like a same story told a different way. The saints whose heads were beheaded, that were under the throne, who do you think those were? I know that's a pretty specific question, but I ask because someone might go, well, they were persecuted and beheaded for their faith or something.
No, John thinks they were. Yeah, John thinks they're Christians who have been beheaded. We don't have any record. The only record we have of somebody from the 1st century being Christian being beheaded is the Apostle Paul, but we don't have a record of that from the 1st century. The first record we have of Paul being beheaded is in the Acts of Paul, which is a late 2nd century, early 3rd century apocryphal text. We do know that Nero persecuted Christians, not because they were Christians. People don't understand this either. The reason Nero persecuted Christians is because there had been this big fire in Rome, and that burned down like a huge chunk of the city. And people started blaming Nero for starting the fire because he wanted to build the city according to his own architectural plans. And they thought, well, maybe he torched it then. And he needed to blame somebody. So he picked on the Christians, not because they were Christians, but because he said they were arsonists. And he did kill a number of them. We don't know how many. It wasn't hundreds and thousands. It might have been dozens. I don't know. But there were no beheadings there. There was various other gruesome ways of killing people. So John, though, does imagine that there are lots and lots of Christian martyrs. And those are the people under the altar who beg for vengeance.
So one more thing I must mention before we wrap up here, because I really want everyone to read the book. It was actually studying eschatology and the end that led me out of the Christianity that I was in. I saw so much confusion and issues. Jesus, in the words of Jesus in the Gospels, expected things to wrap up very soon. Paul expected things to wrap up very soon. Revelation expected things to wrap up very soon. Did they wrap up? So the question is, what evidence is there in Revelation? Because someone will say it's so it's symbolic, it's apocalyptic language, you can't really get what it's saying. So they always have a way of sliding away with a different interpretation. What can we know for certain that didn't happen, meaning it failed, in the book of Revelation?
So one of the arguments in my book is what you started with, is that, it is actually not predicting what's going to happen in the 21st century. It is not doing that. And I try to show that. I try and prove it. But then, what is it talking about then? And it's important to interpret it correctly. And the thing is that the author actually gives us some very clear hints about what it's talking about. And people don't pay attention to it because they don't read it carefully. But when you pay attention to it, he's clearly talking about the Roman Empire and the Roman emperor and the city of Rome, and they are the enemy. And he thinks that they're going to be destroyed soon. That did not happen. Well, of course, the 5th century kind of happened.
That's what I...
But, even so when that happened in the 5th century, St. Augustine, who's the most important theologian in the history of Christianity, wrote about the book of Revelation and argued vehemently that it was not a prediction of the future. And his view held for virtually 1,500 years. So most people throughout the Middle Ages were not thinking this is predicting the future. They were thinking that Augustine's right, that it's talking about stuff going on right now. And so they gave up on the interpretation that was Rome, even after Rome fell. So the prediction, Rome did not fall. And so that would, and the author John really thinks it's going to fall very soon in his day, sometime in the 90s.
Wow. Well put. Thank you so much. Everyone go join down in the description, get one of the lectures, buy one of the books. And with Dr. Licona, I look forward to seeing how you gentlemen, hash it out in the fighting ring. We've already asked you, what you think is going to happen, but is there anything you might want to add to this before it happens?
We start out saying, we're not going to make a debate out of this. We're just going to have an informal exchange of ideas. But as time has gone on, it looks like, this is going to be looks like this is going to be a debate. It's really caused me to think a lot about things in more depth than I have before. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of arguments come out. Because we both think the other's completely wrong. But my big view is that, if people want to believe in the resurrection, they can believe in the resurrection. But don't treat it as a historical fact that you can demonstrate, like the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's not like that. And if you think you can prove it, you're misunderstanding it, and you're actually causing a lot of harm. I'm going to try and show why.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that, Dr. Ehrman. Thank you so much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, in the description, and never forget, we are MythVision. Ladies and gentlemen, join MythVision's Patreon, not only to support us, but there are 72 videos that I did with Dr. Dennis R. McDonald and Richard Carrier, all on the Patreon, early access. You guys can ask personal questions when I go to interview these scholars, and you're helping MythVision grow.